Should read topic number one. Democracy kills, says Burkina Faso leader Ibrahim Traoré. This comes with several links, so we'll work our way through them, and hopefully others will join us in the meantime. So the first one is going to take us to X. Make sure you guys can see my screen. Wait, doesn't seem like you. Okay, here we go. Before we get into it, let's welcome in Buana. Buana, how are you this week?
I'm good. I hope everyone is well.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming through as always. So again, should be topic number one. Democracy kills, says Burkina Faso leader Ibrahim Traoré. This tweet from Global Eye News says Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré says democracy kills. People must forget about democracy. Democracy is not for us. That's the first attachment. The second attachment says most African youth support Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso because he's doing what democracy could not do for the country. This comes with a video. Make sure my sound is picking up. Yes. We'll watch the video and then we'll proceed through the other attachments.
Of all the resources Burkina Faso have, they've not been able to build even more than 5,000 kilometers of road. Today, as we are speaking, when our politicians go around building first coach, second coach roads, he is building asphalted overland roads. How many years? And today, the person that is building roads, the person that is giving hope to the people, we have some people coming from nowhere to tell them that, you know what, we are ready to give you life. In fact, if they want to give life, they should go to Congo, they should go to South Sudan, they should go there and the mess they caused there, they should go and put it together, take it back to them. We are ready to rise up and say, enough is enough. It is now. They can never keep us in the fear or the circles of imperialism. We are ready to detach ourselves and say enough is enough. And this is the time that African youth need to read through the lines and see and realize the truth. The same way they did to Nkrumah, they use the same people. And this is a warning that goes to all African leaders. That they sit back and allow themselves to be used by the imperialists. Anytime there has been any elimination of any African good leader, it is great. We use our own people against us. Just as they're doing right now. We are sending a strong warning to the Ivory Coast leader. The president of Ivory Coast. If you are a brother and you sit down with our enemy, you become our enemy. Simple. We are not our brother again. Warning to them. Warning to them. And we are sending a strong warning to the president of Ghana to send a strong warning as far as diplomacy is concerned to the president and the consulate of Ghana for Ivory Coast that enough is enough. We are never going to sit down and allow this to happen again. If we believe in African unification, if we celebrate 6th March, which is our independence, that Nkrumah actually linked it to the total liberation of Africa. We are saying today that as he is a president, to the Ivorian president, that my brother, you are stepping on the toes of the lion. Don't do this as a brother, because if you do, we are never going to sit back and watch you. If we can't get hold of you, you have your families. We'll start coming after them. Tell them we are coming.
Traoré didn't just seize power, he rewired destiny. He's not leading a country, he's engineering a continental rebirth. When the world expected another puppet, he became the architect of Africa's renaissance. He builds roads while others build excuses. He refines gold while others refine speeches. He speaks less, but every silence shakes Paris. If the West truly wants to give life, let them resurrect the Congo they murdered. Let them rebuild South Sudan, repair the chaos they left behind. Africa owes them nothing, not even an explanation. This is a generation unafraid of exile, unafraid of death, unafraid of truth. We've studied their tricks, the pools, the sanctions, the psychological wars, they could not kill. The lions are no longer sleeping. Traoré is not a man, he is a signal. And that signal says Africa has re-entered history.
I just want to say that that's how that black man spoke just now, and how the narrator even spoke, black woman. This is how every black man and every black woman should be talking, should be thinking this way too. It's important to have that spirit, even if you don't agree with this concept of anti-democracy or whatever. But that's how we should be thinking and speaking to one another, to be quite frank. But we have more attachments for this prompt. This one comes from Typical African, one of my favorite accounts on Twitter. It says democracy took loans and aid just to loot them while patronizing foreigners who loot resources, whereas Captain Ibrahim Traoré uses revenues from Burkina Faso's resources to develop infrastructure and the economy. Democracy is overrated and has underperformed in Africa, especially when corrupt politicians are in power. Now, there's a video here. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop sharing real quick because StreamYard sound disconnected from my browser. So let me do this again. Share with you guys. Typical African. No, maybe it's this one. Yeah. So we'll play this video. It's short, and then I'll play the one last attachment, and then we'll have a grand discussion.
So guys, welcome to Burkina Faso. This is the bridge they just constructed in Ouagadougou right now as we speak. This particular area, show them. This particular area is a new area that has just been constructed in Burkina Faso. And I don't know, some of you guys have been thinking Burkina Faso has not been developing. But I came this particular spot like some couple of weeks, and it hasn't been constructed yet. It hasn't been paved. But check this out now. It's amazing. It's amazing. And this is the work the President Ibrahim Traoré has been doing. God bless him so much. And I want you guys to subscribe. Share this video so people can know that Burkina Faso is really developing. I love you guys so much. And if you want to see the full video, check out on my YouTube channel. I dropped the full video. But check this out. Isn't this amazing? This is Burkina Faso. I love you guys. So guys, welcome to Burkina Faso. This is the...
So again, they haven't had this kind of development in the 20 years prior to Traoré taking power. This is the last attachment here, and then we'll have our discussion.
Les droits de l'homme, Monsieur le Président, organisations internationales ont vous accusé de réprimer la presse indépendante et la société civile. Y a-t-il une place pour les droits de l'homme au Burkina Faso?
Il y a les droits de l'homme au Burkina, c'est quoi ils appellent les droits de l'homme? Mais moi, je ne sais pas ce qu'eux ils pensent. Vous savez, personne ne va venir ici financer des gens, les endoctriner pour détruire nos pays. Ça n'aura pas lieu. Vous savez, il y a combien d'ONG au Burkina? Vous pouvez imaginer, faites des recherches. C'est même pas des centaines, hein. C'est beaucoup. Je ne vais pas vous donner le nom. Faites des recherches. Cherchez chaque ONG fait quoi. Vous croyez vraiment que c'est humanitaire? Donc, il y a des choses comme ça qu'on combat. On dit qu'on combat les droits de l'homme. C'est ça, les droits de l'homme? Nous, on lutte contre le terrorisme pour sécuriser nos populations. Donc, on donne le droit de vie à nos populations. C'est le premier droit, non? Le droit à la vie. Est-ce qu'on ne lutte pas pour les droits de l'homme? On se bat pour que les écoles qui sont fermées ouvrent, pour que les enfants puissent aller à l'école. Le droit à l'éducation, ce n'est pas le droit de l'homme? Qui se bat pour nous? Qui nous aide? Ces mêmes gens qui pillent tous les jours que les droits de l'homme, personne ne nous a donné une seule cartouche. pour lutter contre le terrorisme qui tue nos enfants, pour lutter contre le terrorisme qui ferme nos écoles, qui détruisent nos écoles. Ça veut dire que les terroristes luttent contre les droits de l'homme, nous on lutte pour les droits de l'homme, et eux, ils encouragent les terroristes qui luttent contre les droits de l'homme. C'est eux qui le disent. Et je vous parlais tout de suite de certaines choses qui se passent en Europe et tout. Mais c'est là-bas qu'ils luttent contre les droits de l'homme. Sinon, ici, les droits de l'homme existent. Et retenez quelque chose, les droits de l'homme viennent d'Afrique. Hein. Ça ne vient pas d'ailleurs. Ça vient d'Afrique et d'Afrique de l'Ouest ici. Les premières chartes qui parlaient des droits de l'homme, c'était ici, dans la Confédération AES, plus précisément au Mali.
La charte de Kouroukanfou.
Kouroukanfou. Donc les droits de l'homme étaient connus par les Africains. On était bien organisés, une société bien organisée, chacun avec ses droits, même les droits des femmes. C'est en Afrique que les droits des femmes a existé. Ailleurs, ça n'existait pas. Et c'est eux là qui peuvent nous parler des droits des femmes ou des droits de l'homme. Ils ne connaissent aucun droit. Qui parle des droits de l'homme? Qui a bombardé les enfants en Libye tués? Qui bombarde les enfants un peu partout, largue les bombes sans distinction, tuer des enfants et trucs? C'est ça les droits de l'homme? C'est pas ce que nous on fait. Nous on lutte pour la vie de nos populations. On les protège. Nos soldats meurent pour les protéger. Et on fait tout pour ouvrir nos écoles, pour les éduquer. On fait tout pour subventionner nos paysans, faire l'agriculture pour qu'ils mangent à leur faim. On fait tout pour creuser des forêts pour que les gens aient l'eau potable. Qui lutte contre les droits de l'homme? C'est eux. Ils n'ont aucun respect des droits de l'homme.
Et les VDP accusés de graves violations, où sont les investigations promises?
Ceux qui disent que les VDP sont accusés de graves violations, ils ont présenté quelles preuves? Nous-mêmes, qui avons pris des VDP dans certains actes, ils sont en prison. Ces VDP-là sont en prison. Et ils savent où ils sont. Et nous avons dit, quiconque, ça c'est pas quelqu'un, écoutez, nous sommes majeurs. Hein. Nous sommes majeurs. Il ne faut pas que quelqu'un va nous voir comme des sous-hommes. Nous savons ce que nous faisons. Et c'est cette mentalité aussi qui est dangereuse. Parce que souvent, certains dirigeants en Occident et trucs là voient les Africains comme des sous-hommes. Et donc, ils viennent ici comme si ils doivent nous apprendre des choses. Je vous ai dit que le droit à la vie, c'est nous, on enseigne ça au reste du monde. Personne ne nous enseigne ça. Donc, c'est vrai qu'il y a eu quelques petits problèmes avec certains VDP. Il y en a qui ont fait des bavures et autres. Ils sont en prison. C'est sans état d'âme avec ça. Maintenant, tout ce qu'ils disent là, ils ont eu quelle preuve? Rien. C'est nous, quand les gens nous accusent, on fait les investigations. Et très souvent, on part trouver que c'est ce qu'on appelle la perfidie. Les terroristes, ils viennent, ils font des massacres dans des endroits, avec souvent nos tenues. Même souvent, on dit que c'est l'armée. Et puis ils partent. Et ils sont venus dans les tenues de l'armée. Et oui, mais c'est pas nous. Ils mettent nos drapeaux, tous nos insignes, et puis ils viennent faire. Et les terroristes publient des vidéos de ça. Mais pourquoi ils ne nous voient pas? Les terroristes publient sur les réseaux sociaux des vidéos où ils sont dans nos tenues, dans nos accoutrements et tout. Ils partent faire des actions. Et puis après, ils filment donner à ces gens, à ces individus-là pour dire que ce sont des forces armées. Ils sont bien au courant parce que c'est eux-mêmes qui partent là-bas. Comment ils ont fait pour avoir le canal avec les terroristes pour avoir des images? Comment ils font? Et il y a des gens même qui ont le culot de nous dire qu'ils ont filmé. Je me rappelle une fois, une ONG qui, par image satellite, ils ont vu des Maliens en train de commettre les forces maliennes en train de commettre des exactions. Ils n'ont même pas honte. Et ils n'ont pas l'intelligence de savoir que ce qu'ils disent n'est pas bien. Pourquoi je dis n'ont pas l'intelligence? C'est parce qu'ils voient le noir toujours comme un sous-homme. Sinon, si vous avez la capacité d'avoir des satellites pour voir des forces en train de commettre des exactions, mais vous n'avez pas de capacité d'avoir des satellites pour voir les terroristes. Vous nous insultez alors. Ici, tout notre combat, c'est pour la survie de nos populations et leur sécurité. Et on vit bien. On vit bien, on est en bonne harmonie. Sinon, bon, on ne pourrait pas aller où on veut. Et voilà, on ne pourrait pas agir. Et vous pouvez vous balader au Burkina. Hein. Vous pouvez aller partout où vous voulez. Vous allez voir ce qui change au Burkina, qu'est-ce que les populations apprécient de notre révolution et tout. Et ça vous fera beaucoup de bien.
So that obviously wasn't spoken in English, but essentially the conversation was about human rights and if human rights are being respected. And Traoré had to remind this interviewer, that human rights the idea of human rights comes from Africa, particularly from Mali with the Kourakan, the Kourakan Fuga. was a testament to, was a statement of human rights and the rights of women and stuff like that from like the early 1200s. Then after that, Traoré goes into the idea that these foreign entities aid and enact some of these terrorist attacks. They actually dress up like Traoré and them, carry out these assaults, and then give video, quote unquote, evidence to the foreigners who are backing them, for the foreigners to say, "See, look at these Africans." And he mentioned something in there too that's necessary. He mentions how the world sees Africans as subhuman or as subordinate. So when they see these stories, these images of these people who are pretending to be Traoré in them, carrying out these atrocities, people tend to believe that. People tend to run with it. But at the end, he basically says, talk to the people. You'll see that the people are pleased with the advancements under or during this revolution that he and others are leading. So it's an interesting thing. Now, you guys in the chat, I see some of you tend to like democracy. Let me read a couple of comments to start off here, and then I'll throw it to my panelists. Let's see. So real quick. Oh, wow, there's a lot more comments than I thought there was. But Trigger Happy's out there in the chat saying peace, peace. Athrazer says, representational government is important. Democracy to me is just a word. We need to be able to remove bad rulers. We need to focus on principles, not labels. Labels obscure, principles reveal. Athrazer says, a brother sent me a history lesson on how Rastafari was installed, removing the person that was installed by his father because of the meddling of the Europeans in Ethiopia. This was a good monarchy. He says, democracies, monarchies, whatever form of government can be manipulated. It is not it is the content. Lastly, he says here, is it good government or bad government? There's a few other comments. Kofi the Black Critic is out there in the chat. The matron says greetings to everyone, just to name a few. The matron here says, I have always been a fan of the benevolent, humanistic dictator. I'm going to leave that comment up there for a little minute. Let me start off with Black Steel. Black Steel, what say you to all in relation to Shooter Breeze topic number 1, democracy kills?
Well, I would say this. I don't understand the correlation, right? So one thing he said about democracy, and I can understand, the particular situation that Burkina Faso is in, right? Because we have foreign entities that are arming insurgent groups within your country as a way to undermine your leadership. So here's the problem. Here's the thing, right? And Athens really spoke to this, right? People need to be able to have a government that represents the will of the people. The idea of democracy not being African is not correct, because there are many institutions within Africa that represent the will of the people, that has limited government, that has separation of powers. These are all ideas that come from white people put them in, they said them. But as Traoré was saying, we were doing human rights and women's rights long before you guys were. When you guys considered women property, we had given them the freedoms that took you centuries to build. So the concept of democratic ideals is not being African is kind of funny, right? And even if we look at if we talk about European democracy, going all the way back to ancient Athens, right? the governments that were in Africa were much more, open, much more had more will from the people than anything that was being done in Europe, right? But I think that in a situation that where Burkina Faso is in, right, because they are dealing with the existential crisis, right? There may be a time to maybe curb some sort of democratic ideals, but once that emergency is over, at that point, then you have to give the power back to the people, because you want to have a government that represents what people want. The idea that you know what's best for the people and they shouldn't have any say in things. Because to me, that's what you mean when you have a dictatorship, right? You have one ruler who controls everything. And I'm not saying that's what he's advocating for, but to say that democracy kills, and then to kind of say, oh, look what happened with Libya and so on and so forth, I would hardly call what Gaddafi had a democracy, right? People could vote, but I mean, he was in charge for 30 something years. When you have a leader who can't be removed and you can't critique him, then you don't have a democracy. So yeah, I don't believe that relating the two means that democracy is bad. You need to have as a leader, you need to be able to be held accountable for the things and your actions that you do. And the people need to have a voice in the way they're being ruled. That's what democracy is. Nothing about that is anti-African. Nothing about that is killing people. I think that we need to educate the citizens of the country, because one thing about democracy is that you need a well-educated citizenry for it to work. And I think that as you educate the people, as you're improving your nation, then I think that you're going to have a much better outcome. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Black Seal. I will say, and I'm glad that Black Seal referenced it a few times. These guys are at really the beginning of a revolution. I don't think you need democracy yet. I agree with the matron in that I believe you have the benevolent, humanistic dictator. You give them a chance to guide the country where it needs to go, get rid of the problematic elements, etc. What happens, and I think this is the thing we cannot forget, the way democracy is practiced now and the way it is pushed on Africa too, by the way, Western democracy, you can be that benevolent, humanistic dictator, and they'll arm what do you call it? They'll arm a threat against you. They'll propagandize your people against you, and before you could even really do anything good with the country, you'll be out of there, if not killed out of there, deleted out of there, right? So I just want to make sure that we're all aware of that when we have in this discussion, that I don't know if he said democracy never, but I do believe that he's saying, like, right now, we don't need people who are still, we've said it before, and it's a kind of a crude statement, but the masses are asses. Do you want to have a democratic election now when these guys are just percolating? Me personally, I don't think so. But let's hear what Buana has to say about it. Buana, what say you?
I think that I agree with the both of y'all brothers. I agree with the both of y'all in this respect, because you should have a say so in the affairs of your country. That's important. You can't be paying taxes to the country. You can't have obligations to the country without the privilege of having the say so as a citizen within that country. As far as Western style democracy, I do believe Western style democracy, as it's been practiced not only in Africa but throughout the world, has been a killer, whether it's to their citizens in the country or the other people outside of their countries, respectively. They've killed people, Western style democracies, and that is a fact. Parliamentary democracies stagnate. if Western democracies kill, parliamentary democracies certainly stagnate. You'll have these people sitting in parliament discussing on matters that are trivial, fixing the roads. It takes 30 years to build a building. You can't wait 30 years to decide whether and a certain energy should be provided for your constituents, or it shouldn't be provided for your constituency. It shouldn't take 30 years to do that. So I think that parliamentary democracy certainly stagnates. I'm concerned, though. I'm concerned because there are many people, African leaders in particular, who have a history. When they get in power, they all about the people, and then 30 years later, they still talking the same rhetoric. And I hope this is not an issue of history repeating itself with Traoré, because many African leaders began in the same vein of Traoré back in the day. So I hope it's not the same old merry-go-round. If you have an issue with the Western style democracy, well, create African democracy, whatever that looks like. Even if you have to dig into the history books to see how effective in terms of politics, African style democracy could work in Africa. Even if it means you extended term limits. If you can't do it in 5 years, if you can't get certain things done within 5 years, extended terms, extended to 10 years, extended to 15 years. But certainly, I don't think you have some leaders who've been in power for 50 years. You mean to tell me there's no one else in that country who can't govern the country as effective as you? That is fanciful. That is fanciful. So I don't want us to get in, because I used to believe in this idea of benevolent, humanistic dictator as well. I used to believe in that, but I think that when it comes to power, these things should be shared, and when it comes to the running of a country, there are other voices besides yours that should be heard as well and implemented in terms of ideas. It can't just be one particular man or a group of men deciding the fate of the country for 30, 40, 50 years. The country stagnates if you do that. So I think that if you come up with a better plan, it should be a better plan where you should have certain points of where you could reference in year 5, this is going to happen. In year 10, this is going to happen. By year 15, I no longer have no use. I'm going to pass the torch on to someone else. If you don't want to go with the whole 5-year term limit election every 5 years and things of that nature, change it to where it's suitable for you. But you can't deny the rights of people having a say so within the country themselves. I think that is unfair. And I am very leery with this kind of rhetoric. In terms of the video itself, of roads being built and things of that nature, man. I live in a country where roads are built. But since Burkina Faso is really a new country with a lot of young people in it, they don't understand that after you build the road, you have to maintain the road and make sure the road stays the way it is after 30, 40, and 50 years. Maintenance is important to the building of a country as well. After the building is built, the other trick is maintaining the building, and the other trick is improving on what you have built before, improving on it. So I don't want my Burkina Faso to be get intoxicated with the idea of newness, where 20 and 30 years down the line, you see, okay, now this building been built for a long time, but now you're seeing cracks and wears and tears and things of that nature. So where's the maintenance? I'm hoping the people who built those roads were actually Burkina Faso, and if they were not, if they were outsiders coming in to fix those roads, hopefully they would have people inside the country who are taking notes. And they understand how to create these kinds of things themselves, if need be. So if you have to maintain these things, you don't have to import from the outside again. There are so many, for new countries and new development, there are so many things that you think about. There are so many things you may not even consider because of the newness of a thing. Whereas there's someone who's been around longer, they know, okay, this thing has been built, wonderful, but how long is this going to last for? Like anything in the world, it has a a time period of when it is new, then it gets worn, and then now you have to create repairs. and then it's also, you have to have the people who talk about at no improvements, innovation, and advancement. All these things should be into the discussion as well. That's why I feel like sometimes it is, I wouldn't quickly move away from the idea of including others in the building and the maintenance of my country. And like I say, it shouldn't be no one man who could come around within a country where you don't have other people who could do the same thing just like you. That must be considered. And they'll be frustrated in your country because they could provide for the development of your country, but for you just been in there 30, 40, and 50 years and think only it should only come to you. No, it doesn't work that way. Power should be shared, responsibility should be shared, all these other things can be shared. And after a while, you have to have succession plans for when you leave the mid office, it won't fall to shit. Because if everybody depended on you, what if you get sick? What if you die? So succession planning is another important thing as well. So all these things should be considered into the building and the development of a country and in a country moving forward. So this is really what I wanted to add to the discussion.
Appreciate that. I gotta say something though. Afro pessimism is a big deterrence for progress. The idea that if I took leadership in a black nation, that I may be just as bad as the people before me, I have a problem with that. Give me the chance, the honest chance, to take the place, the country, or the nation to the next level. And everything that y'all said, no one said anything about, you know what, he might come in there and he might not just build roads, he might build bridges, he might build this, that, he might do this, that, and the other. And I think that's a little bit problematic. If I'm to be honest, who would want to take leadership after hearing that doubt of African leadership? I understand we've had assholes in the past, but guess what? Those were puppets of the West. The same people folks was clamoring to get democracy from. Those were those puppets. They were the ones to misuse this thing called democracy and use propaganda against their people and all that. I think we got to move past that. Because what's going to happen is you're not going to have people in earnest who want to take these positions. I don't want to be doubted from day one and lumped in with the previous assholes from day one. I think that's something we got to consider. You know what I mean? After makes a point. He says caution is not pessimism. Actually, caution is pessimism. There is an element of pessimism in that. Like Trigger Happy said, 9 out of 10 of these people were puppets. And I shouldn't. If I've sat down all my life and I watch 50 years of bad governance, and I say, you know what, man? I have examples of when we were great. I think Buana might have mentioned, Blacksteel might have mentioned. I have all these years of watching the nonsense, and I say, you know what? I'm taking it back to what we had before. Like recently, I think it was either early this year, late last year. Traoré it was said at least that he had selected a council of elders or something along those lines, right? The way we used to do things, right? I think it was Blacksteel who mentioned before times the king didn't have absolute power. He still had a council he had to correspond with, right? The point I'm making afterwards or in the chat is when we put these messages out that we have to be wary and leery of an African who comes along and is trying to do something, that's not helpful. That's not helpful at all. It provides a chink in the armor for the Western powers now to come and disrupt everything that's being done. Is that not agreeable?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so, Coco.
Explain.
No, I don't think you finished?
No, yeah, well, take it away.
No,
Go ahead.
finish, bro. Finish,
No, no,
brother. Finish.
I'm done. Go ahead. Tell
No,
me
no.
where if you put the doubt in people to be leery, constantly leery, at the start of a revolution, are you not inviting the Western powers who are gunning for you, who are gunning for this man, to come in with
No,
their propaganda?
No, I don't think so, Coco. I think that, you should always hear two sides of an argument. Not even an argument. Not even an argument. If this gentleman is 47, 37, 38 years old, and someone who is 47, 57, who's seen the changes in the country, who understands human behavior, who understands the world a little bit more because he's lived longer. I'm not saying that because he's old, he's smarter. I'm saying he's lived longer. So he understands some human realities the younger gentleman, the young optimistic gentleman might not be aware of. So that blinder, I'm helping him remove that blinder that he may not see at the point of where he is in his life. I'm making him aware of that. I'm not trying to steal his thunder. I'm just making him aware of that. I'm making him aware of the fickleness of human beings. People will cheer you one day and say worship you one day, and the next day they'll call you the devil. A younger person should be aware of things like that. They shouldn't have. I'm thinking I am making the leadership more smarter, more intelligent. Especially like if you live in a certain kind of world, you understand certain realities that exist, whether you want to admit it or not. Now, I am an optimist. I am not, but I'm also a pragmatist as well. I'm a pragmatist as well. And I don't want to walk through the world with blinders on. Neither should I pass that on to the younger generation so they could not be aware of certain things. And when certain problems befall them, which is an eventuality of life, they will know how to deal with these things. So I'm not trying to be a negative. If it would be unwise for me to know better and shut my mouth and not say nothing and say, I'm going to just be optimistic. I know enough about human behavior to know, the reality, not only of him, that optimistic young man, but the people around him as well, from the young person to the older person, because I've lived longer. So, I mean, I understand, and I'm not, you talk about Afro pessimism. I feel like I'm a very optimistic individual, but I'm a pragmatic individual as well. And these voices need to be heard around the president as well. You can't just be around singing the man praises and talking about the wonderful things or possibilities that could happen without talking about the practicalities as well. And I would be hold on, let me finish. I would be negligent. I would be negligent in my life experiences not to express this to the leader.
Real quick. What has Traoré done that sparks the need of doubt at this moment?
First of all, this whole idea of being anti-democratic, what do you call it? What the prompt was? Being Western democracy kills. If Western democracy kills, first of all, it sends a signal out to the people who live and have to exist in the space that he lives in, that who want to have a say-so, in the affairs of Burkina Faso. When they hear their leader say that democracy kills, they say, "Oh, this person don't want us to participate in the affairs of our country," and that going to sow discontent. And after discontent, what comes after that? You're inviting people in the country to do harm to you, because the people around you say, "Well, I'm not going to be paying taxes to my government. I'm not going to have all the obligations of a citizen." but have no say so because this leader doesn't want me to have no say so because he's anti-democratic. No, I must have a say so in my government. If I provide all the taxes and revenue for you to do all the things that you're capable of doing inside your country, I'm not going to sit back and have nothing to say about that. Absolutely not. That should be invited. In my mind now, in my mind, the president should invite people to give advice or to give their opinions, especially if they're citizens of his country. And I'm saying you inviting turmoil into your country when you start talking like that. That's all I'm telling you.
But who's to say that he doesn't invite the ideas of trusted people around him?
You asked the question. You asked the question, right?
No, but that's the point. I'm saying we're just saying things without knowing. Well, maybe he is tapped in to the grassroots of his country, and he's moving based on what the grassroots. Maybe the people are saying, "Yo, we need roads, man. We need better roads around here. We need this thing. We need that thing," and he's moving according to what they're saying. That's what I'm saying. We're putting up the dark cloud without really knowing what's going on.
That's true.
It creates doubt.
That's very true, Koku. But I also think that we've seen in the past, right, how many African leaders come on board with popular support, and then over time, once they refuse to leave power, then it becomes difficult. Let's look. So even right now, you have a small country like Equatorial Guinea, right? That's been ruled by the same family almost since independence. We got the issues of the dictatorship in Togo. That's another problem. We got who could forget Mbotu, how he did the Congo. So maybe we don't want to sound the alarm just yet, but there's something like that when someone says democracy kills. Maybe it's something that we have to we need to be concerned about. I'm not ready to ring the alarm just yet. It's not even a yellow flag yet. Maybe it's like a greenish yellow flag, but it's just something we just need to keep our eyes on.
I could live with that. That makes more sense. But to say, anyway, let's welcome in our brother Kofi, the Black Critic. Kofi, how are you this week?
I'm doing good. You can see I'm on the road right now, but I enjoy the conversation. I'm always doing something ripping and running. So with the conversation that I have, it says, I'm responsive. Democracy kills, and I agree with a lot of what Black Steel and Juana said. And we have to really differentiate between what is democracy. White people didn't create democracy. White people like to tell you they created democracy. They created Western democracy. Was the first time democracy ever existed was during the time of Western civilization with the Greeks. That's totally not true. Africans had a society, right? We had a democracy. We had a monarchy. We had also a democracy where we had heads of state. We had council. We had all these advisors that we have. So we can't let our Western sensibilities or Western people taint something that we created that they bastardize. If you're a president of somebody, you can't be the president of something and have like a monarchical type ideology. If I'm the president of something and Ibrahim Traoré is the president of something, that means, he came to power in a different sort of way. But if you're the president of something, you're saying, hey, look, I have a board, I have advisors, I have all these people that I have, and my board and all my advisors, right? They could come together and say, you know what, you are the leader, but a president, even if you're a king, you have a monarchy, they have to listen to their subjects. The only difference is with a president and a king, the king could always say, you know what, I don't care what my subjects are saying, I'm gonna do what I want to do. You know why? Because I'm king. If you're a president, you have to be held accountable, like Juana says, right? Even in this country, you had Black people during the civil rights era where you're paying taxes and it was taxation without representation. Like Rhonda said, you're not gonna be charging me taxes, and I gotta give you a portion of my hard-earned money, and I don't have a say so in it. So I think we just need a fresh look at what democracy is. Go back to the elders back then. Okay, what worked before colonialism? What was we had a system that was working before colonialism. So let's take what we were working during colonialism and take a new first. Okay, we like certain things that quote unquote the West have given us. Let's incorporate all these things and have something that's a working model that benefit us and us only. But someone else said something about Haile Selassie, and that was a good monarchy, whatever. And any monarchy that's fixated around religion, especially something that black people didn't cultivate, I'm against that, right? So, and Haile Selassie, he's a very interesting person. So I don't think he's a good example. But what we need to do is pretty much just incorporate things that works for us, and they should be term limits, because there's no term limits on a president. That's why a monarchy would never work. If anyone that's familiar with Game of Thrones, I'm pretty sure Black Sea with Game of Thrones, there's the thing called the Mad King. If you have a Mad King and he could do whatever and say whatever, yeah, I'm for the people. But if he backtracks and on his promises coming to the throne, you have to wait till the man dies, or there's going to be a coup. Like, we don't want that. There's a reason why there's coups, right? Especially someone who's been there for so long. No, if President Tory, Ibrahim Traoré is there, or any African president, like, hey, look, these are my term limits. I gotta do what I have to do. You know why? Or I will be removed from office. Right? To me, that's a whole lot better. That's a better working model for any working, functioning government. That's pretty much it.
I just want to point out something too. People talk about democracy. In America, there's a democracy, right? Black people are paying
Hell
taxes.
no, ain't democracy in America.
Black people are paying taxes. What say do they have? What do black folks get in return for paying these taxes? They went to a war the other day. Was black folks consulted?
No. But that's why when you have law, when you have lawyers, they say we're practicing law. I never understood why they say, well, we're practicing law, because it's something that they're putting in practice that is pretty much, it's supposed to be a working model. So you're not, democracy is a working model, because from my view, my historical viewpoint, it was never meant for all people. That's why there's amendments. That's why there's bills. That's why it's always something that's supposed to be working for the better, for the betterment of its people. So that's why it's something that's in practice. So it never held its promise. And I'm not going to go off on a Malcolm X or Martin Luther King speech. It never held its promise. And that's why democracy in the westernized sense is tainted. Because when you talk about democracy, everyone thinks about Europe and America. And us as black people living in these places, we can't even we can't do that. Like everyone needs to go to the Benjamin SM podcast, and we go to the Discord. I was looking at religious thing that someone posted there, and it was a bunch of Nigerian Christians, and the guy was saying the reason why Nigeria, why Christianity is good, is because of the missionaries, and the missionaries brought civilization. I know I'm kind of like going off topic, but I'm saying that to say, if African people think that the standard of civilization, of democracy and religion and God is Europeanized, then yeah, we don't know what we're doing. We're being very dysfunctional. So yeah.
Go ahead, Blacksteel. Go ahead, brother.
I would say this: America is not a democracy, right? America is a constitutional republic, right? Not so much as democracy. They have democratic ideas, but then we elect representatives that represent the people, right? So that's why you have a Congress and a Senate. You have the House and the Senate that represent the people, right? You elect representatives they're supposed to support you, but that's what it's written down to be. You look at the Constitution, whatever. In reality, the United States is a plutocracy, is a corrupt plutocracy, right? Where the rule is not by the people, but by the rich people, right? So in a true democratic society, majority rules, right? So you have majority rules, but then you also have minority rights, where you have, even though you have the rule of the majority, but yet the rights of the minority are to be respected. You don't have that in the United States. Anything that the majority of the people want, 9 times out of 10, is not going to happen if the rich don't want it. So I would definitely say the U.S. is not a democracy. It's more of a plutocracy, which means ruled by the rich. It's what the rich and the wealthy people want in America that gets passed by law, not the other way around, not with the will of the people. And we can go into a lot. Say what?
Do you want that in Africa?
Absolutely not. We do not want a plutocracy.
What Traoré is talking about. This is what Traoré is talking about.
So, but when he's conflating plutocracy with democracy, is not the same thing, right? You don't have a situation where. Go ahead.
America dresses up democracy. You're correct. And Provide Trigger said in the chat, America dresses up this thing called democracy, but those who know what it really is. And this is what this guy over in Africa is saying, yo, we don't want that here. We don't want that here. I'm sorry, Black Steel, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, you're right. But yeah, we don't want a situation where it's only a few people who've captured the mechanisms of government, and they're able to kind of destroy the will of what the people want. And I think that's something else we have to say. We don't want to see the will of the people destroyed. We want to see what people want happen in the government to a certain degree. But I also understand, again, to my point about the precarious situation that this country's in, right? We understand they're under attack by foreign entities, by people who want to destroy their country. And when you come to a situation like that, you may have to curb some things. You know, even in a quote unquote country like the United States, during wartime, there are certain things that have to be curbed, certain individual freedoms and things like that. You may have to put a hold on that. But the expectation is that that's only in times of emergency. Even if you look at in the Roman Republic, if we're going back then, right? They didn't have a democracy, but in times of war, you could appoint a dictator like Julius Caesar, for example. He was a good example. But their fear that Caesar wouldn't leave power, that's why they ended up killing him, because they were afraid he would make himself king. Yeah, and that's why they got rid of him. But the American design is not, in my opinion, a good one, because look what happened when the Supreme Court voted in that Citizens United mess. All of a sudden, corporations are people now, and they have a voice, and them giving money is a way to express their freedom of choice. And now you have the entire government being overran by the elite, you know, the wealthy 1%ers, billionaires. But yeah, you have to have certain checks and balances. And even the checks and balances that were written into the Constitution of the U.S. are routinely ignored. So if you're going to have a government, you have to have a situation where the government represents the will and the needs of the people. And I think that Traoré is doing that. Like he mentioned the roads. You have a country like Burkina Faso that's a very, economically exploited country. When the French came, they built roads, they built infrastructure only to facilitate the theft of resources from the country. It was merely meant to be things to be extracted, not to build up the wealth of the country itself. So now Traoré recognizes, he sees it, he's trying to come and create a better situation. I think that especially in a situation like this is necessary. But just hope eventually, I would like to say that we're going to come to a situation where we're no longer defending ourselves against these terrorist groups. And then at that point, we should really be talking about elections and whatnot. And if the people want to retain him as leader, that's good. But then at the same time, you have to limit yourself. Okay, I'm going to serve 2 terms and then I'm out. Or maybe you want leadership to pass to the next person after you. We don't want it to be a situation where everything is caught up in this one leader. Because then once you cut the head off the snake, then everything is over. We want a situation where you can bury the man and continue the plan. So we don't want everything as far as this revolution to be caught up in just one individual.
I think that I wish the president of Burkina Faso the best, and I don't want to be presumed as a pessimistic person, but I am old enough, and so is Koku, is old enough to see, and you say you don't want to be saddled with the people of the past, but I am old enough to live in a country under a benevolent dictator before. You know, when he initially came to power, he did almost the same exact things as Traoré. He built roads, he built schools, he built a hospital, he built many things, and people were singing his praises at the beginning of the fact that it was a new country and it was a country that was percolating at the time. But something happens when a man stays too long in office. You know, something happens to a man. I don't know. See, some people say absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you have a person having that much power for that length of time, something happens to the individual human being. I don't know what it is, man. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's in our DNA, in our coding. But I've seen this play before. And as a pragmatist, even Kofi on the Forbes burner in Guyana was doing the same exact things as Traoré. And so is the man Papa Doc. Many people don't know Papa Doc was a very good leader initially in the beginning before he eventually became what he became. And you are right. You don't want to saddle yourself with history and events or what people had to endure with other leaders. You want to separate yourself from that. But the reality is we are connected to history as well. Sometimes history repeats. And I don't want to saddle him with that kind of thing. So I don't want to speak negatively. I wish the best for that country. But I hope that I'm not watching a play that I have not lived in before. I've not lived in before. And Koku sees the results of it when he goes to Princess Margaret Hospital and what's going on inside there. This is the results. And I live with the results of that activity of what was happening in the beginning. And I hope the best for that country. Because I'm talking out of experience. I ain't talking out of my ass. So I'm hoping and wishing for the best for that young country with a bunch of young people inside of it. And I hope that they withstand the test of time. And I will reserve my criticism until the test of time is tested. And I'll leave it there.
Bravo, man. Bravo. That's all I'm saying. This guy, Traoré, is talking about we don't want outside influences because we know how they run the game. We know how they run the game. Now, to Buana's most recent point and his overall point, it's true. I was there when that regime change occurred in our hometown. In fact, that was the first time I voted. But what I would say is this. We need to make our people knowledgeable of the history. In fact, Traoré himself can make the people knowledgeable of the recent history, which led him to the revolution. And then he needs to, what's the term again? He needs to distance himself. No, that's not quite the right term, but he needs to operate in a way where it just distances him from the recent failures of leadership. But the people are aware what has happened before. So he needs to elevate and maintain. And as far as the term limits go, I could be crazy, but I remember when the Sahel Alliance first came to be, they talked about term limits, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember what the timing was, but let's talk about that quickly. What's a good amount of time for a revolutionist, you think? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20? What's a good period of time? And what are some of the metrics you guys think? And this is for you guys in the chat too. What's some of the metrics we should have to measure to continue from 5 to 10, from 10 to 15, etc., and so on? I'll start with Buana on that one.
But this is absolutely what I was talking about in the beginning. You should have a plan to tell your people this is where I want the direction of my country to go. And this is the time barometers where I would have to do certain things, have certain things in place. So it not only put pressure on me to perform as a leader, but it put expectation in the eyes of the people. So I'm being pushed to do certain things. In year one, we're going to build a hospital. In year two, we're going to ensure that energy is done in this way. In year three, we're going to have education. It'll be the year of education. In year four, so people will have an expectation to what they should experience in the upcoming years. So your people ain't just blind and say, well, I just in power for power's sake. No, you should let the people know what the plans are for the certain expectations, whatever, and after you out. Because I'll even give you as much space as in 10 years. You see some people try to build one school in 10 years and how that's going. Donations. But needless to say, you should have, I'll extend the time limits to 10-15 years. This is enough time. I feel like you should vastly be able to change the direction and course of a generation of people. Someone who went to was in school from kindergarten. By year 12, they should be coming out of that classroom ready to come into the structure and all the things that I've put in place as an adult person to add to the benefit of the country. But after 12 years of being in office, and all I got to show is, well, we don't have nothing for you to do in the country. Get it how you live. There's no proper planning in there. So I think that this should be structured. And then after that time is over, you make a declaration, say, well, I will be demitting office at year 30. I will be demitting office and handing it along to anyone, whatever, who the people elect or whatever, however you all structure that. But have it set out so the people that have expectation to in terms of what's to come in year 3, year 4, year 5, and then tell the people that. Let the people them know, but this is my thinking, this is my thinking.
Yeah, well, the question was asked to you. Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on that. Black Seal, how about you?
I would say this, right? I don't want to give a set time, right? Because we don't know what the needs of the people of Burkina Faso is, right? A true revolutionary, right? A revolutionary is the fish. The people are the water, right? We're supposed to swim and get our support from the people. So we got to look at what the people of Burkina Faso need and desire. If they want infrastructure, then we got to map and plan out a time to plan that infrastructure, right? But everything needs to be above board and transparent too. We can't be hiding stuff from people. We got to account for every cent. We got to get free of these IMF loans and whatever financial attachments that we have to the Western powers, like Thomas Sankara did. So I would say this, right? Whatever time frame that you set, right, you keep it, right? No emergency extension. If we said we're gonna have elections and so on and so forth, that's when y'all have education, right? That's when y'all have that's when you have your election, and you keep your word, right? Everything has to be above board and transparent, and then reflect what it is that people want. If they need a system where they can feed themselves, I think maybe that's something that's high on their priorities, right? Open government, limited government. Make sure that the people can speak to their needs and their needs are being met, and you're speaking to those people, while at the same time not just ignoring those who necessarily didn't vote your way. You're still their leader. And he had situations in the past in Africa. If you elect a leader from one particular group, then his group gets priority and everybody else gets nothing. So I think that we do is that we just kind of have to provide the people what they need and see where we would go from. If the term is 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever. But I do think it needs to be a situation where we can get this person up out of here if it's a problem, right? We don't want a situation where this dude just running around 30, 40 years and can't nobody say nothing. And then, look at what happened and look what's going on in Togo or Equatorial Guinea. In that situation there, We got this dude, him and his whole family to run the country forever, and you can't
or Cuba.
or you know what? Fidel Castro when he was in
Fidel,
control.
yeah, Fidel Castro came into
Fidel
power.
been dead for a while. He's been dead.
Yeah, he was 32 years old, Black
Right.
Steel. And by the time he was like when his 80s, he still was talking about when the revolution is over. Come on, bro.
But here's the
Come
thing.
on.
Revolution is a process. Revolution is a process, right? That's the truth. Revolution is not going to be over in. Revolution is a process. It's an intellectual endeavor too. It's not just let's just sit together and get guns, right? We gotta understand that revolution is a process. The Cuban Revolution is still going on. Revolution is not from
Yeah, I bet it is.
It is. I'll leave it there.
Really good conversation and good participation from the chat. I couldn't read all of the comments, but shout out to Sister Cheryl. I saw Brother Bakari in the chat earlier. I hope I didn't miss anyone. Provide triggers for evolution, of course, who has a comment on the screen now saying Cuba has had free education and a national healthcare system irrespective of the transfer of power without the existence of Western-style democracy. Lord of Sola says Cuba was blackballed. And Sister Cheryl was like, honestly, I don't think the people are educated enough to make a choice about what economically, politically, and infrastructurally are best for the nation. So good stuff, good conversations, man. I am optimistic, even though I too am a pragmatic person, but I'm optimistic that Traoré will make the right moves, and the people knowing the history. And because one thing that's happening nowadays too, and you see it on social media, a lot of people are starting to connect the dots of history and recognizing the poor leadership over here. And in fact, one of the videos I played here a second ago, if you shake the hand of this other man over here, we will not be like a lot of the people are starting to connect these dots and realize these different little plays within and around these countries are important to pay attention to. So I appreciate that conversation. But for time's sake, let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2. We're going to switch